And we're recording. This is great. This is an episode of Healing for Healers, and I haven't done one of these in a while. And I'm so excited to introduce Geraldine to the world. I believe this is her first podcast, so we're hooray for Geraldine. And Geraldine wrote the most amazing book. And we're going to be talking about her book and about mythology and psychology. But I just want to introduce a little bit with her bio that I have. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Geraldine S. Brooks, such a fancy name. Are you Dr. Brooks now? It says you have a PhD. So Dr.
Yeah,
Brooks.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. She's a writer, a researcher, and a psychologist. And Geraldine focuses on the topics of personal and spiritual development, divine feminine consciousness, the transformative powers of love and beauty. Oh my God, don't we need that in the world now? We really do. And mind body healing. As a psychologist, she takes an integrative approach informed by science, as well as the wisdom of traditional Western and Eastern health disciplines. And you've also worked with Jungian, transpersonal, and energy psychology. And you live and work in Vancouver. And
Correct.
your book, can you put the title? You just show us your book is called Awakening to Aphrodite's Light, Love, Beauty, and the Divine Feminine. Now,
Thank you.
not to make this all about me, but when I was in my 20s, I went a little bit crazy and I blamed Aphrodite for that. I felt she had come in, stepped in, taken over, and I was gone. I wasn't there anymore. It was her acting out through me. And so it was a bit of a battle, a bit of a wrestling match. And I think when I'm thinking of the triptych of the mother, maiden, crone, and we have the maiden who's again a bit wild, that Aphrodite. There's a lot of societal ideas around who she is, what it means, and it's not proper and it's not right and it doesn't work. So the again, the inner battle between are we sensual, feminine beings, or do we have to hide away and wear an apron and bring up the
Yeah.
children kind of thing. So I'd love to open our conversation, maybe to talk a little bit about your experience with Aphrodite and why you wanted to write a book about her.
Thank you. Well, I'll just say that yes, she can do that. She can just take right over. Um, and I mentioned that in the book is that people can find themselves acting in ways that surprise themselves and surprise everybody else around them because they end up just taking on the archetype. And it's important to use discernment along the way about the choices that we make, right? But sometimes it just takes us over. And especially with Aphrodite, it can be very delightful to do that. Do you know, I recently came across some old journals, and when I looked at the dates, I'd been making notes about this book for decades. And but it kept not quite coming into the right form, and also other things got in the way, like getting my doctoral degree and the death of my parents, and like all kinds of things got in the way of writing this particular book. And but Aphrodite has always been my favorite goddess. When I was really young, my sister entered a contest and she won a book of a 10 volume set of books for children, but many of them were about myths and legends of the world. And I read and reread those books about myths and legends of the world. And I hope some of them are like, they must be deeply in my unconscious because I can't recall them all. But they made a big impact on me. I just love the stories. And I don't recall thinking particularly about Aphrodite or Venus, but she got in there. And so just always I loved beauty, and I I loved clothes, and I loved I was thinking the other day about a friend of mine because people embody archetypes, right? And
Mm.
she's so Artemis. She, like, probably right now, she's out in a forest somewhere with her big dog wearing shorts, like hiking through some forest. And I like nature a lot too, but I always have my eye out for like, where's the nearest spa? Like I want that at the reward at the end of my hike, you know? And so anyway, all of these influences over all of these years just kept drawing me back to Aphrodite. I ended up, before the whole COVID thing, ended up writing a novel with Aphrodite as a theme in it. And but I was looking for an agent and looking for a publisher, and nothing wasn't playing itself out in that realm, and I couldn't get it to happen. And then the whole COVID thing happened with the lockdowns and everything. And I thought, well, I'm not going to get any traction trying to market a novel through all of this. But suddenly this book started to take shape, and it took shape because everything was looking so bleak and dark and scary in the world. And for me, beauty has always been an antidote to that. And so I was thinking, we not only need that on, like, I needed it on a personal level to seek out beauty, but also we need it more in our world, our attention to that, because it raises our energy. And so I decided I'll just start writing this book and see what happens. And I really do think it was a kind of divine timing, because I think that I kept thinking, why didn't I get this book out earlier? But I actually think it's the right time for not only me personally, but for it to come out into the world now, because this is the kind of message that the world needs. Like, we need balance. We need the balance of the divine feminine, which lots of people talk about. But I also really think that we would benefit from a real seeking out an integration of beauty into our lives to balance. Like, even people talk about doom scrolling all the time, to balance all of that.
My heart has just opened listening to you talking. I swear to God, Geraldine, I have a list of lovely questions to ask you, and I'm like, fuck those. Because as you're speaking, I'm remembering, beauty is truth, truth is beauty. And I've always seeked that as well throughout the years on Facebook. And I've been on Facebook, I don't know, since 2012, like even longer. I think I posted up something today that's 10 years old about ascension. Anyway, I use affirmations a lot in my work, and one of the most popular ones for me, the most important one is, if you want to see more beauty in your life, deliberately fill your life with beauty. And everyone will be like, "Oh my God, where did you get all those flowers from? And where would you?" Because I planted them myself.
Yes.
It's that kind of a thing. And again, as you're speaking, I feel grief, huge grief at where we are at the moment. And it really emphasizes the truth behind what you're saying and how true it is that we need this now. Because, okay, my daughter wanted to dye her hair just for fun for the summer. And I said, any color but pink or blue. Why, Mom? Why? Why?
Yeah.
We compromised on purple, and she did little purple highlights and it looked good. But that's what's going on. Everything is getting blue washed and pink washed and white washed, and let's turn beauty into a pageantry. Let's take the
Mm.
sensuality of women and turn it into joke, you know, jokery. What would you call that? Pageantry. And let's take the piss out of powerful women and just stand up and say, well, I can be a woman too. I'm wearing a dress just like you. And and this is controversial, possibly. I don't know, do you cover this at all in your book? But this is my first actual, engaging with you. This is what's coming up for me, is that this is a real thing, and that we
Yeah.
need to not only be calling on Aphrodite, we need to be on our knees asking her to come back.
Yeah. Do you know, I haven't didn't address that in the book, although it would have been a really great thing to address. I think the real the full-on wave of what you're describing didn't happen till after I had written the book and it was in the whole publishing process, which was long. Um,
Do you have to
Yeah.
write a second book now? No.
Yeah. Well, I do want to write another book about different aspects of beauty, like really diving into that subject more. Um, yeah, I, okay, it makes me think of two things. One is that one of the very nice things that people have said to me after reading the book, men as well as women, is that it had reminded them of how maybe they used to celebrate style more, fashion more. Like one man who's a really tough scientist, he said, "Oh, reminded me of my uncle, you know? Like he really inspired me when I was young because he was such a snappy dresser." And you know, a woman said to me, "Oh, it's sort of," she realized that she had gotten out of touch with that part of herself, you
Hmm.
know, that really loved clothes and loved to celebrate just how she presented herself physically in the world. And so that just warms my heart to know
I
that,
think there's more though. I think this is the scary part
yeah,
is really, to quote, was it, I know it's Coco Chanel said, they don't remember you, they remember the clothes.
mhm,
But I'm feeling that as we are growing more into spiritual, authentic beings who are empowered, first thing comes to mind is there's nothing more terrifying than a woman who's in her power. And that's
mhm,
why they have to kill her.
yes,
But the second thing that comes to mind is, I'm seeing like the chariot card in the tarot and the wildness of the ride of beauty and can you control it? And once it's on out there, it can't stop. That was me again, going back to what I said about being in my 20s. So, do you have ways in your book that women can gently start to introduce the archetypal energies of Aphrodite into their lives without becoming overwhelmed? Because,
yes.
especially in this podcast, Healing for Healers, I think it's really important that people who are caregivers, who are healers, emulate this so their clients feel safe to emulate this, you know?
Yes, and I think it starts with what you said earlier about if you want to have beauty in your life, cultivate it yourself, whether that's literally, like I've seen the lovely photos of your dahlias, which are fantastic, you know, and whether it's that or in every way. One of the things that maybe you have, I don't know if you've got to the part of the book where I talk about the different senses,
Mm,
um, and that we really pay attention to everything around us in terms of our senses, how things taste, how things smell, how they look. Do you
isn't it
do you
interesting?
drink out of pardon
I
me?
hate to interrupt you, but isn't it so interesting, Geraldine, how COVID knocked out people's sense of smell?
Yes, exactly. And it's our most primitive
And that
sense.
impacts taste.
Yep, hugely.
It's all going to this end, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And so one of the things, here's a tiny commercial. If people go to my website, I will and sign up. I will send them a free guide about how to bring what do I call it? Seven sensual steps to bringing the goddess of love and beauty into your home, and it's about a step-by-step guide to going through your home and paying attention to all your senses. Are you creating an environment to live in that reflects who you are? Not everybody has to have the same taste, you know, it doesn't have to be perfectly curated. In fact, it's better if it's not because it needs the life of who that person is. And so I think when you start paying attention on a physical level, and it affects us spiritually, it affects us mentally, right? We start looking for beauty, we start experiencing beauty. I mean, I use finding beauty as an antidote if I'm feeling down about something or when I've gone through really, really hard times in my life. You know, I turn to some form of beauty. I mean, when I've gone through very difficult times, I read a lot of poetry, you
Okay.
know,
So that's
because I
something
like
really
beautiful words.
practical people could do, reading poetry.
Yeah.
How about perfumes and oils and soap? I like a beautiful soap.
Yes, a beautiful soap is a great thing. Um, a, a wonderfully designed fork or spoon is a beautiful
Oh, my
thing.
mugs that I have.
Yes, you know, it makes I mean, think about using having to have a beautiful meal, but eating it with like a plastic fork versus
Mm.
a beautifully designed fork that sits well in your hand. You know, it brings a different level of experience to it.
It makes you slow down too, doesn't it?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
So it's not just about how you look, it's about how you feel.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's just, I like clothes. They're just a manifestation of certain expressions of beauty, and they show the world some things about our values, right? But it's just one. It's just one element, um, and there's no rules around it. Uh, but it's finding beauty in all aspects of our life. I'm one of the things that I touch on in the book is I'm very distressed about what's happening to modern architecture. Now,
Oh,
of course, we can find all kinds of information online about Tartaria and, you know, the beautiful buildings that used to exist that don't exist anymore. Someone sent me last night a, a, what a rendering, I guess, of a building, of a set of apartment buildings that are going to be built very, very close to me. They've already started. They are so ugly. They're
mm.
just horrible. And they're going to block many people's view of the ocean. But in themselves, they're just like, I'm thinking these designers are demented. Like, or they hate us, one of the two. They're so ugly. And it's not necessary. It's not necessary that all our buildings be ugly. And it depresses people.
It's deliberate, I think.
It's deliberate.
We were talking about Gary Keeley before we recorded. Gary is one of the founders of the Live 5D Health, Mark Atwood's health place in Boyle, and he gave a presentation about exactly this.
Mhm.
And he was talking about these amazing cities like Vienna and Rome, and you'd be walking to work and you'd be walking past these very tall structures or very elaborate buildings, and it's almost as if they feed you with power,
Mhm.
that they draw it down and have it there, and you feel good just being around them. And then they wipe them out and they're gone, and they put in these bricks and glass and steel and nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, think about like this very charming little building up the street from me was replaced by a convenience store a chain. It's part of a chain, and it's like horrible fluorescent lighting and whatever, right? And what a difference going into a little local shop, you know, where you see like you still see in places like France more commonly, but you know, with the vegetables piled up um, and the warm wood and all of that. Hopefully, you saw some of that in Greece still, versus
Yeah, but
going
here, I
into,
remember when Waterstones came to Dublin as a book shop, and it was all the bio fluorescent light.
yeah,
And they're there, come and stay, have a coffee, read a book. And I'm like, I love books and I love coffee, but I can't stay under these
yeah,
lights.
exactly.
So, I mean, so that's even something somebody could do. I mean, I'm always of the mind that if you have been completely taken by everything, you have very little resources to work with, and that changing your entire life overnight is an impossibility. But you can do one small thing, and that will give you some energy back, and then do another small thing and take energy back. So, if you're in an apartment, say, and all you have is a fluorescent light, go out and buy a lamp and leave
Yes,
your lights off, just turn the lamp on, and the softness of the light will give you some energy. And then you can go, oh, I can have a plant in here. And
yeah,
then you bring in the plant, and then you, oh, I could change my soap to something nicer. Is the kind of place that you're coming from? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. You can't see it, but on my desk, I always have a pink rose.
I can see
because I love
behind you that you've got some pink roses.
yeah, it's often, yeah. Well, for one thing, pink is Aphrodite's color. Um, but I love roses. For uh, They are Aphrodite's signature flower, but also I grew up loving roses. And so I always have flowers in my house, but at minimum, I have a rose on my desk. It's a small thing.
That's your cover too, isn't it?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think people listening who are sparked now and inspired to maybe do this but might not have the energy to do it, how could they connect to Aphrodite in a real way to get her to help them?
That's an interesting question. I think too, you could meditate on her, you could talk to her, you could sit. She's connected to nature. So you could go outside and say, how can you guide me? What can I learn from you?
Mm.
Even bring a little bit of nature inside, you know. Um, One of the reasons that I think um, that clothes and jewelry, for for men and women, but are um, helpful reminders is because they're physically on us. We carry them with us into the
Mm.
world. So if we're wearing something that we feel good in versus something that is very serviceable, but that we don't feel good in, it makes a huge amount of difference to just our experience of being there, out there in the world. I was thinking last night, there was a friend of mine who used to work in a men's prison. And one of the things she found so difficult about it was not just that, um, my God, she was hearing like horrendous stories about what these prisoners had done and, so on, but that she had to wear drab asexual clothing. Um, and one time I went shopping with her, she was looking for work clothes. And I kept saying, "What about this? What about this?" She said, "No, it's too pretty. It's too nice. It's too feminine. I can't wear that. I have to wear
Yeah.
something really, really drab," which I understand why. But she was finding it really demoralizing to wear that every day because
I'm
she
wondering
felt
now, I'm being very risque here, but maybe she could have got some very fancy underwear for
it,
underneath, and then she didn't
exactly.
know.
Yeah, I know women who've done that. And I don't know if she did. I don't know if I ever asked her that. But it was just that thing about not her outer was not reflecting um, her inner. So
Mm.
she couldn't wear colors, even bright colors. And I thought it was a small but very significant example of how she felt really her femininity being so repressed. And then, of course, she was dealing with a lot of people who had, or men who had done violence towards women. So she was immersed in that also, which, of course, was hugely impactful. But that always stuck with me.
Yeah, but I don't know, maybe it's an armor for going into a
Yes.
place like that.
Oh, yeah. She
Maybe that
did.
wouldn't be a kind of job you could do all the time.
No, she had to leave eventually because it was too on every level. It got too much, right? But that was just an example of how um, she felt that she had to be neutral. She had to be asexual in there. She had to be disconnected from her femininity.
And so she
And
has an awareness of her femininity. It was hurting her.
yeah,
So are you
yeah,
thinking then that the reason why this is dragged on so long is that so many people don't actually have an awareness that this is what's going on and they just feel crap and don't know why?
yeah, yeah. I think we're really disconnected from beauty. I think we get so we get so used to seeing ugly buildings. We just think, oh, that's what the city looks like, you know? And then as soon in front of my where I live, there are some trees that have little bits of flowers around them, little gardens around them. I appear to be the only person in the vicinity who takes care of these. Not only do I water the flowers, but I am kind of aghast how many people throw things in those little gardens,
Ooh.
like uh, beer cans, coffee cups, litter. Like what? Like you are so disconnected from not only the beauty of this tiny little garden, but also community. That this is what you do, is you just throw trash into this little garden. Like I find it very sad. I
Yeah.
also it's kind of disappointing that I'm the only person that picks it up. Not because it's such a burden for me, but because are you people around me not noticing that
Yeah.
that these little gardens have been desecrated?
It's about
So
being in right relationship. So if
exactly.
we've swung so far away from right relationship with the environment, with ourselves, with each other, then I mean your book is basically saying Aphrodite is the one who can sweep in and not to the other side of
Yeah.
things.
So see, the thing about Aphrodite that I tried to get across in the book is that she's usually thought of as the goddess of love. And you see, because Venus, Roman counterpart, and she's always known as the goddess of love. And they leave out the and beauty part,
Mm.
right? And so, as the goddess of love, she's been so sexualized in a very uh,
Marilyn Monroe type way.
Marilyn Monroe type way. You know, like if you look her up on, if you look up images of Aphrodite on the internet, you'll see many sexy images, you know, and you'll see many people dressed or women dressed in really sexy clothes, you know, being this is how they're connecting. And that's fine if you want to do it, but that's not all that she is,
Yeah,
right?
tell us a little bit more about her character. Like if she was in her 60s and she was living next door to you, how would you imagine she would hold herself in the world?
I think she would be full of life, but as you said, she would be full of power because Aphrodite was not ashamed of herself. She did not apologize for herself. She knew who she was. She went after what she wanted. And she was she was clear, you know. And but that doesn't mean she didn't have compassion
Hmm.
or um, you know, that she could be gentle, but she was strong, right? And she
So
had
using
power.
and abusing people is kind of what comes up. Did she do that? I mean, you have a much more of a broader knowledge of her than I would.
Did she abuse people? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, like using and abusing men and taking things for granted and being flippant. Was that part of her psychology, say?
No, not really. She got accused of that a lot. But usually the accusers, if you look at what they were saying, it's really they were afraid of her power
Yeah.
and trying to um, uh, reduce that. No, she punished people, but she punished people, uh, you know, in true good mythological style, for not honoring her, not respecting her. That's when you would get the worst punishment.
So if
Yeah.
she was this 60-year-old living next door and she invites you in for a cup of tea, she could show you her dungeon where she's keeping all of
Yeah. Yeah, don't disrespect her because you'll pay the price if you disrespect her, you know,
Yeah.
and because you'll become disconnected from you'll become disconnected from beauty. You'll become disconnected from your authentic sexuality, I think, or femininity, if you want to look at it that way. Um, but yeah, she there's a wonderful quote. I can't say it perfectly. But it's about she is powerful in the same way a forest is powerful, you know,
Ooh.
um, is that it's that. life force moving through her. One of the things that I love about her is one of the stories is that when after her birth, when she stepped on the shores of Paphos, flowers sprung up at her feet because she represents fertility and growth, but also in the her great love for Adonis and the death of Adonis, it's also tapping into that great mythological strain of death and rebirth, right? Is
Mm.
that things die, but things come back to life.
Mhm.
So
Back to life.
um, when she ran to when Adonis was gored by a bull, sorry, a boar, and he was dying, and she heard his cries, ran to his side, and she stepped on a white rose, and her blood turned the rose red, which is why we still have that symbol of red rose connected to love. But also, she cried as he was dying, and he cried, and their tears mingled and turned into anemone flowers, right? So
Mm.
there's death and sadness, and
The beauty of it.
there's beauty and rebirth come out of it. So, so even though beauty can wound us in the intensity of it, but there's always the other side of it. There's always rebirth.
Mm. That is beautiful. I like that. One of my favorite stories as a child is an Oscar Wilde story, The Nightingale and the Rose. I don't know if you know that one, where
Yes.
he gives his life to make the rose red, and then the rose ends up underneath the wheels of a cart. And
Yeah.
it's like, doesn't end well.
Yeah. I know.
I
I
think I'm
know.
going to replace my favorite story now with this one instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd like to kind of change the gears a little bit and look at client work and how you would work with these types of myths, the energies, the beauty of Aphrodite with a client, maybe. How would you introduce that? Because it's interesting. I mean, as a shamanic psychotherapist, I can say to someone, go out in the garden and start talking to Aphrodite. But as I'm wondering, is that acceptable these days now as a standard type? You know what I'm saying here.
Oh, I do. It depends very much on the client. I mean, there are some clients who come to me and they want to talk strictly about something like how to make a career change or something. And that's fine. And they're not necessarily interested in going into deeper work. But most of the clients I have come to me because they know that I am interested in Jung and transpersonal work, and they want to work at a deeper level. So for those people, I listen to hear what stories they are living out. You had asked me ahead of time about the role of myth in our life. And it made me remember this wonderful quote by Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist. And he said, um, myths are, see, um, the song of the universe and the music of the spheres that we dance to, even if we don't know the tune.
Oh,
Isn't that beautiful?
that's archetypal energies running through us,
Yeah, even
patterns,
if we
right?
don't know about it.
Yeah.
So sometimes what I do is if I hear a story playing itself out, then if that person seems so inclined, I say, you may want to read more about this. Here are some resources. You might want to learn about this myth. It can really help guide you,
So you
you know.
bring up the myth.
Pardon me?
Would you say to the client that reminds me of a particular myth?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then, sometimes I might give them a synopsis of the myth, but then suggest they go do more reading to it. Um, Sometimes I give the example when I was doing my doctoral work, and it was a hard slog for a lot of it, and there were many hoops I had to jump through. And I knew the myth of Inanna, the Sumerian myth of Inanna, and she has to descend into the underworld and she has to go through get all these things stripped away and all these tests. And I really related to that myth a lot.
Okay, you were her.
And it helped guide me because it was about it's about transformation. They're all about transformation in the end, right?
Mm.
So sometimes I tell that story, or I suggest another myth that they might find helpful. I frequently refer people to James Hollis, the writer, because he's a Jungian author, and he has done wonderful work on myths, as many Jungians do. Um, so in other cases, I would just say maybe introduce the idea of Aphrodite in not such an in-depth way, but invite them to start paying attention to bringing beauty into their lives and talk very specifically about how they could do that. Because as I said, we said, people cut themselves off from it.
Yeah,
And so what are small ways that you can bring it in? And I really notice that a lot of people need to give themselves permission to do that. It feels indulgent to do that.
exactly.
And so what I can do is, no, it's not indulgence. It's it's healing. It's um, it can be transformative. It's exactly what you need to do.
It reminds me actually of a point in time where I had to redefine selfishness versus self-care
Hmm.
so that I had, I suppose you're talking about, elevator pitch for your book, right? I had to elevator pitch the idea of selfishness so that they
Hmm.
got it in a one-liner and would never ever forget it.
Yeah.
So I basically would say to them, being selfish is taking more than you need at the detriment of somebody else.
Hmm.
Is that
Yeah.
what you're doing when you're changing your soap or
Hmm.
buying a lamp so you have softer light? Are you hurting someone else and taking more than you need? Whereas
Yeah.
self-care is looking after yourself, yourself with a big S.
Yeah.
It really does feel like a lot of masculine archetypal conditioning has come and trodden over all the feminine, and we need to blossom again. We really do. And even in the men, to allow that to blossom in them too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not for it to be perverted, say.
Yes.
Do you have a story of a client that you could recall that had a remarkable transformation just by doing some of this work? I know I'm
Uh,
putting you on the spot now.
yeah. Oh, well, okay, let me think for a sec. I can think of two. Um, Somebody wrote me, a client um, found my book and read it, and she wrote to me the other day, and I find it so interesting what people respond to.
Yeah.
She really responded to the part that I had written about the beauty of language, and it sent her on a little bit of a quest to find words that she really loved and that she was practicing using in the world, like just fun words, you know. And then the other thing, she closed by saying, the email saying, I'm off now to look for beauty in the world. Like, yes, thank you. That's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Um, the other one, a client that I was working with, and it was around issues of feeling really disconnected from her partner sexually. And where we got to with that is she was really feeling disconnected from her own sensuality and sexuality. Um, an, an image that I often use is I say, and it kind of sounds like your sense of yourself, your femininity, your sensuality, in whatever form you want to express that. It's like being on the back burner on the stove and it just barely on simmer.
Mm.
And I said, like, let's put aside for a moment the idea of like you want to be a fantastic sexual partner. Like, that's great, but let's put that aside. Let's bring that to the front burner. What would that mean to bring it to the front burner? What helps you feel alive and sensual and beautiful in the world, just within yourself? Maybe it's the clothes you wear. Maybe it's that you have flowers. Maybe it's that you love hiking in nature. Like whatever it is that makes you feel alive. Maybe it's dancing, right?
Mm.
Um, Even though you don't, as Joseph Campbell says, you don't know exactly the tune, but you're dancing, to whatever that energy is.
It's
And
allowing yourself
she's,
to do it, isn't it?
yeah. And anyway, so we talked about that, and it really had a big impact on her. Um, and she's really paying much more attention now to her own what her own self, what brings her joy, what brings beauty into her life, and what makes her feel alive. And I haven't talked to her for a while, but I can only imagine that her partner is benefiting from this, you know? So,
You know, it's amazing. It reminds me of a client that I had many years ago whose mother had died and she just couldn't get back into the swing of life again because she had been looking after her mother for years. My client, I think she was in her 50s. And so we were talking about where she lived. She could now change it a little bit, make it more her own. So I said to her, "What's your favorite color?" And she didn't even know.
mm,
She was that disconnected,
yeah,
but she was living to serve as
yes,
opposed to having a life, as opposed to being alive or being in her life.
yeah.
So I would like to give people homework in those days because they'd be coming for more than one session. And so I say, okay, this week, all I want you to do, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite smell?
Ah, beautiful.
What's your favorite music? What's your favorite taste? Do you prefer coffee or tea? What do you love? You know, make a list of 5 things that you love to see, to hear, to touch, to move.
Yeah.
It took her 3 weeks to do it.
Wow.
It took her 3 weeks. So we had to plant the seed. So I'm very familiar with people who don't have the energy to even know how to start doing that.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. But at least planting the seed of it.
Yes. And also, I think what it asks of us is that we slow down, just
Yeah.
as you were saying before. Is slow down. Like if you're having a really wonderful meal, don't eat it really fast. Like you want to slow down to appreciate it. And and to take in the idea that there is beauty everywhere. I think it was on Telegram the other day, you had a picture, maybe it was of was it a dandelion puff?
Oh, taken from up,
And
looking up through it. Yeah.
yeah, and so beauty can be found everywhere. Yes, it can. I mean, I think we're all familiar with those photos, of the little stubborn little flower pushing itself up between concrete paving stones. It's like it, nature, and I would say Aphrodite keeps asserting herself. She
Yeah.
keeps showing herself to us, but it's up to us to recognize her and appreciate her.
It reminds me of another client I had who was so excited because he had just moved house and he could have his parents and his wife's parents over for Christmas dinner with their children for the first time. And so they were very excited. So I said, "Will you do something for me?" And he was like, "What?" And I said, "When you're all at the table and everybody's eating and everybody's talking and everybody's happy, will you just stop eating just for a minute and look around the table at everybody's faces and really capture the moment in your heart, not in a photograph, but in,
Yeah,
in your soul, in your essence, because that the likelihood of this happening again is slim, you know, and for you to really embody the memory.
yes,
He said to me he was so happy that I had asked him because he wouldn't have thought of doing it himself and he did it and it was just for him it was the best part of the whole day. It was even better for him, he said, than watching his kids open their presents.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
And so I've been talking about beauty in terms of things like tangible things, flowers or clothes or whatever, but it's those intangible moments that are so fleeting, but so powerful. Yeah, they're
I'm going
so
to be
important.
looking for forks. I've never looked at fork, but there are definitely forks that I don't like at
Yeah.
home that I avoid. There's a few forks that I do. I've always been about the mug though. The right mug for having the coffee or tea is important. So we're
Yeah.
coming to the end, would you believe? And I want to wrap up with your book again.
Hmm.
Can we see the cover again and just tell
Sure.
people where to get it?
You can get it on, if you're in Ireland, you can get it on Amazon.ie. You can get it on every uh,
Amazon.
English-speaking Amazon site. And in the US, Barnes and Noble has a
Very good.
site, they're a big online retailer, and in Canada, Indigo.
So I
Uh,
want to say, and I'm going to interrupt you because there are so many books out there right now that are crap. There really are. And when I picked up your book, it wasn't, I had no expectations. And you bring in a weight and a solidity and the essence of the frequency that you're talking about. You bring in the love and the beauty in that book. This is not a book to read quickly, which is why I haven't finished it yet.
well, in which
Because
case
it's
I
like
must
just
have.
like sitting at the Christmas table. You want to enjoy every word. And when time is such a precious thing, I find I don't like to read crap books anymore. I've never in my life have I left behind so many books, turned off so many movies, is because it's like, no, 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 this is a book to buy, reader, listener. Get the book. The links will be below and sit with it. You could buy the physical copy and put it under your pillow just to invoke Aphrodite into your life. I have to say, Geraldine, it's such an addition to the collective consciousness of a
Oh,
frequency that we all really need. Really need.
thank
So
you.
not only, because I only have the PDF, I'm going to buy a physical copy and have it in my, to say as a testament to Aphrodite, a testament to the work you're doing. I think it's so important. And I feel really honored to have you on my show.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. And I'll bring you a copy.
Oh, a signed coffee.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Um, yes, because I'm delighted that I will be visiting Ireland soon. But thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
So I just want to ask you for
Wonderful.
something to leave our viewers with, our listeners and our viewers. What would you leave them with? One key piece from the book to whet their appetite, maybe. Is that a hard question?
No, I'm going to read what I wrote, the little sort of poem that
Oh
I wrote at
yes, yes,
the
please.
end of the introduction, which is well, what I said was, may this book awaken or strengthen in you a personal relationship with Aphrodite and the positive transformative energy she represents. As you read these pages, if you allow your mind and heart to open to this beloved goddess, you too may come to value and honor her as I do. This is her promise and her blessing. She is feminine nature in all its glory. She is a celebration of love and life. She can make your life complicated. She can make your life beautiful. Her divine presence will change you if you let it.
Yeah, I have a feeling she's been speaking through you. And some of that book just has that feeling of depth to it. It's just fabulous, and I'm so happy that the book exists. Thank you for writing it.
Thank you. Well, she certainly did make my life complicated, just as it may have made yours complicated in your 20s. Um,
Absolutely. And but I think bringing it back in that energy, her wisdom in a slower way. And we grow together then as you get used to having more power in your life, you can bring in more beauty, and then you get used to that and you bring in more in it. So it can be so when you move from the back burner to the front burner, and then slowly, very slowly, you can turn on the heat a little bit more as it doesn't have to be fast, because I think fast can be explosive, and that's
yes,
what everybody's afraid of.
yes. And just to say, touch back for 1 second to what you said earlier, is that in when she's being reduced to that sexy role, it's also made her in a way, it's weakened her. But really,
Yes.
it's about her power and her transformative power. She's not known as the alchemical goddess for nothing. She can change us and transform us, which is beautiful.
That is beautiful. So thank you so much. And everybody, there's going to be links below. Get in touch with Geraldine and write for that. Was it a guide that you
There's
have
a
to have
guide.
a free
Yeah.
guide, get a guide, and get the book. And I will see you in the next episode of Healing for Healers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.